So we have a liberal arts core that compels students to take courses in the humanities and the social sciences and math, and eventually we will add the natural sciences as well to that core. And then they specialize, they do majors in technology and business management, and we will add more majors over time. But how do we teach ethics? I mean, what I've described so far talks about or speaks to an intellectual perspective, a way of reasoning, and a way of problem solving. But this idea of empathy and compassion and ethics is just as important. In some ways, it's more important than just building people's intellect and creativity. Because a creative criminal is a very dangerous thing. And we need to really think long and hard about this. How do we build ethical intelligence? And Ashesi is approaching this in a couple of ways. The first is curricular. So we have a leadership seminar series that runs through 4 years. The first year, they take a seminar that speaks to the question of the challenge of leadership, the difficulty of leadership, and ethics, ethical leadership. And so they read about successful leaders, inspiring leaders, but they also read about the dark side. They read Machiavelli, and they read about leaders who have failed. They read about Enron, and they discuss failed leadership on the African continent as well as successful leadership on the African continent. The second seminar, and I should say the first seminar also compels them to think through what kind of leaders they want to be even as students, and what kinds of leaders they want to be when they grow up, when they get out in the real world. And now, because we have alumni, we also bring alumni back into that course to discuss ethical challenges, ethical dilemmas that they are currently facing in the workplace and how they're dealing with those challenges. The second seminar is titled The Good Society. What is the good society? And it's really a course about law, constitutional law, rights of humans, and governance. The third is the economy of the good society. How do you organize an economy that lifts the most people up? And they read everything from Karl Marx to Adam Smith and in between. And they look at models that have worked in the world, models that have not worked in the world. And the fourth seminar is titled Leadership as Service. The idea that leadership is not about power. Leadership is not about being served or making commands. Rather, leadership is about serving society. And in that seminar, they get a lot of speakers from the social sector in Ghana to come talk with them. But most importantly, they go out and do community service because there is this lab for the humanities and the social sciences called the real world. And they go out into the real world and see for themselves what the issues are and see how they can engage those issues and how they can apply the skills that they've learned in college. But most importantly, it helps them develop empathy. And then finally, we have a very strong and pervasive communication on campus about this question of ethics. The way we run the college, the transparency with which we run the college, the integrity that we exhibit as managers of the college, so the students can see, so leadership by example. But also we've encouraged our students to adopt an honor system where they promise to do their exams ethically, to not tolerate people who cheat, and in return we step out of the exam room. We don't proctor their exams. And at the end of every exam, they sign a statement that says, I haven't cheated, I haven't seen anybody else do so. Or they say, I'm not signing because I've seen violations, and go talk about it. This is completely different than anything they've seen in Ghana. When we started this conversation about the honor system in 2006, I was amazed by the debates that went on. Very inspiring in some ways, but also disturbing and startling in others. I learned that students learn to cheat as early as junior high, that their teachers encourage them to cheat as a means to be successful on the national exams. And so in high school, cheating was the norm. And I realized how profound this problem is, because that is what corruption looks like when you're 14 years old. That is what corruption looks like when you're in your early 20s, is unethical behavior in your business of being a student, right? And it showed me, I finally understood, okay, this is a real problem on two levels. First is there are people who really see absolutely nothing wrong with cheating. They actually see it as a positive thing. I'm helping my friend. And then there's another group, a bigger group, that doesn't cheat, but that does not have the courage at all to hold others accountable who are cheating, that accepts it as a way of life. And that's also reflected in society. So we went through a couple of years of intense debate about this honor system, and the students ultimately voted to adopt it. And we started to roll out an honor system in 2008 on a class-by-class basis. So each class had to vote a minimum of 2/3 majority in order to be on the honor system. And they're very proud of it. But it's not without its challenges, this honor system. Last year, the Accreditation Board asked us to stop it because they do not believe that Ghanaian students can be trusted in an exam room. And they told us, and they told our students, this is a big problem. It's a terrible thing to tell a young person that even though you've decided to take this path, we don't believe you. We don't believe that you're capable of taking this path. The student body voted overwhelmingly to ignore a directive from the Accreditation Board. I was copied on over 100 letters written individually by students to the Accreditation Board about why they ought to keep their honor system. That, of course, is inspiring. But it tells me that we have a ton of work to do to really not only change or not only establish a way of ethical behavior at Ashesi, but to get other institutions to follow. The good thing about the events last year was that it was very public. And so for the first time, students across the country suddenly were caught up in a debate on radio and on Facebook about ethics. and whether this would be possible in their own institutions. We had an ethics conference last year that was covered by the press.